Alright, guys. I never thought I'd be posting here, but here I am. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Lauren, 31F, for almost 7 years. It's been a pretty solid marriage, or at least I thought so. We've got 2 kids together, Jake, 6, and Emma, 4, and I really thought we had our shit together. We've been through ups and downs like anyone else, but nothing that seemed like a red flag. Until recently. The thing is, over the past few months, something just felt off. Lauren started acting different. At first, it was subtle, spending more time on her phone, being distant, going out more often with her friends, yeah, that classic excuse. I brushed it off. We're both busy, work, kids, life in general. It's not unusual to get a little distant. But then it started to get worse. She'd be out late, not answer my texts, and when she came home, she'd have the lamest excuses. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your text. Or, we had a few drinks, I lost track of time. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that she wouldn't do something like that. But there was this gnawing feeling in my gut that something was seriously wrong. And you know what? I should have listened to it sooner. So, the moment of discovery wasn't even some huge dramatic thing like you'd expect. It was one of those casual, gut punch moments that hits you when you're not even looking for it. Lauren had gone out again, supposedly with her girls, and left her phone charging on the kitchen counter. That in itself was unusual. She's normally glued to that thing like it's surgically attached. I wasn't planning on snooping. I swear I wasn't. But then her phone lit up with a text. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but hey, I'm human, right? I looked. The message was from some guy named Ethan, and it was a little too friendly for my liking. I miss you already. Last night was amazing, face-blowing kiss. My heart stopped. Everything I had been suspecting, all the late nights, the dodging my questions, it was all suddenly crystal clear. But that wasn't even the worst part. I scrolled up, and the text painted a pretty graphic picture of what had been going on. They'd been hooking up for weeks, meeting up when I was at work, when she was at the gym. You name it. It was like every shitty thing she'd been telling me had been a lie. I didn't know what to do at first. My hands were shaking, and my mind was racing. I could barely breathe. But one thing was for sure. I wasn't going to sit there and let this go on without confronting her. I couldn't wait. I wasn't going to play it cool or sit on this info like some patient saint. I was pissed, hurt, confused, all at once. So when Lauren walked through the door later that night, acting like everything was normal, I just snapped. Who the F **K is Ethan? I blurted out, holding her phone in my hand. Her face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. But instead of coming clean, she doubled down on the lies. Ethan? He's just a friend. You're overreacting. A friend? Yeah, right. Friends don't send each other texts about how much they love the sex they had the night before. I showed her the messages, shoving the phone in her face. Does this look like just a friend to you? And then the waterworks started. She burst into tears, crying about how she was sorry, and that it didn't mean anything, and how she wasn't sure how to tell me. The lies kept piling up. First, she claimed it was only a one-time thing. Then it was just a few times, and before I knew it, the truth came spilling out. It had been going on for nearly 2 months. She even had the audacity to say she didn't tell me because she didn't want to hurt me. As if cheating behind my back for weeks wasn't hurtful enough. I was boiling with anger. Every excuse, every tear just felt like a slap in the face. She tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. Do you think I'm an idiot, Lauren? I yelled. You've been lying to my face this whole time. She just stood there, crying, begging me to listen, but at that point, I was done with her sob story. I thought I was angry before, but nothing prepared me for the emotional roller coaster that hit after that confrontation. Once the adrenaline faded, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. I couldn't think straight. My wife, someone I trusted, someone I built a life with, had been sneaking around with some random guy, lying to me for months. It felt surreal, like I was living someone else's nightmare. I sat on the couch after she stormed upstairs, crying her eyes out. She kept saying she'd fix it, and make it up to me. But the words felt empty. Like, how do you fix the fact that you've been cheating on your husband? The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way again. I stayed downstairs that night. I didn't even try to sleep. Just sat there replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out what I missed. How did I not see this coming? I felt like a total idiot, questioning every single thing in our marriage. Was any of it real? Or had she been lying to me all along? When morning came, Lauren came downstairs looking like hell, but still, she tried to act like we could just talk this through. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to hear whatever BS explanation she thought would make this better. She kept saying she didn't want to lose me, but I honestly couldn't tell if it was because she loved me or because she didn't want to deal with the consequences of her shitty choices. I couldn't stand to be around her, so I packed a bag and left the house for a while. I needed space to clear my head out. I drove around aimlessly for a while, trying to make sense of everything. My mind was in overdrive. Every corner of my brain kept reminding me of all the times I trusted her when she said she was just with friends, or working late. All those moments I never questioned anything, because why would I? I thought we were solid. Turns out, I was just a damn fool. Eventually, I ended up at my buddy Ryan's place. He's one of the few people I trust enough to talk to about this kind of thing. When I showed up at his door, he took one look at me and knew something was up. I barely got 2 words out before I broke down. The mix of anger and sadness hit me like a tidal wave. I told him everything, about Lauren, about Ethan, about how my entire life felt like it had just blown up in my face. Ryan didn't try to sugarcoat things. He didn't tell me, "Oh, maybe she didn't mean it," or any of that bullshit. He just listened, which was exactly what I needed. After I finished ranting, he asked the one question I hadn't even let myself think about yet. "So, what are you gonna do, man?" And that's when it hit me. I had no idea. Part of me wanted to throw everything away, file for divorce, and never look back. But then there was the part of me that still loved her, that couldn't imagine blowing up our family because of this. We've got kids. Jake and Emma had no clue any of this was happening, and the thought of breaking up our family over her stupid decisions was a weight I wasn't ready to carry yet. I told Ryan I needed time, and that's the truth. I needed time to figure out if this was even something we could recover from, or if this was the end. After that night at Ryan's, I took a few days to just breathe and think. I didn't go back home right away. I stayed with Ryan, and honestly, it helped to be away from the chaos. I filled my time with late-night talks, playing video games, and trying to keep my mind off everything. But deep down, I knew I couldn't avoid the inevitable. I had to face Lauren again and figure out what to do next. When I finally went back home, it felt like walking into a war zone. Lauren was on edge, tiptoeing around the house like she was afraid I might explode at any moment. I could see the guilt written all over her face, and it made me angrier. She kept trying to initiate conversations, but every time she opened her mouth, I felt that familiar surge of rage and hurt. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. "What the hell do you want from me, Lauren?" I snapped one afternoon. "Do you think a few tears and some apologies are going to fix this?" She looked at me, and I could see she was desperate for some sort of forgiveness. "I messed up, okay? I'll do anything to make it right," she pleaded. "I love you. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I took a deep breath. Love? Did she even know what that meant anymore? "You're saying you love me, but you've been sleeping with someone else. You've shattered everything we built." That hit her hard. She went quiet, and for the first time, I felt like she was actually listening. But then she tried the guilt trip, saying things like, "What about the kids? Do you really want to break up our family over this?" And that's where it really got complicated. The thought of my kids growing up in a broken home twisted my gut. I wanted to scream that it wasn't just my decision, it was hers too. She had made the choice to cheat, and now I was left picking up the pieces. As the days dragged on, the tension in the house became unbearable. I tried to focus on the kids. They were my lifeline through this mess. Jake and Emma didn't deserve to see their parents fighting or, worse, splitting up. So I kept my interactions with Lauren as civil as possible, mostly for their sake. But it was getting harder and harder to keep my feelings bottled up. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I finally sat down with Lauren to talk. It was time to lay everything out on the table. "We can't keep pretending like everything's fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You cheated on me. You've hurt me in ways I can't even describe. I need to know if you're willing to work on this, or if we should just go our separate ways." She looked at me, and I could see the struggle in her eyes. "I want to fix it," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'm so sorry for what I did." "Sorry doesn't cut it, Lauren," I replied, my heart racing. "You can't just say you're sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. Trust is gone. You broke that, and it's not something I can just overlook. I need time to process everything." Her face fell. "But I love you. I can change. I'll cut off all contact with Ethan, and we can go to counseling. We can work through this together." The desperation in her voice tugged at something deep inside me. I wanted to believe her, to think that maybe we could find a way back to each other. But the reality of what she had done loomed over us like a dark cloud. I felt like I was being pulled in two directions. My heart still wanted to save our family, but my mind screamed that I needed to protect myself from more pain. I told her I needed time to think and that I couldn't promise her anything right now. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was the only fair thing to do for myself, and for her too. Maybe some space would help her understand the gravity of her actions and give me the clarity I desperately needed. After that talk, things shifted. I started focusing on myself and the kids, while Lauren took a step back to reflect on everything. It was a strange feeling. One part of me was still hurt and angry, but another part was hopeful that this space could bring some clarity. I spent more time with Jake and Emma, taking them to the park, having movie nights, and just being present. It felt good to pour my energy into something positive, even if my heart was still heavy with betrayal. In those moments, I could see the pure joy in their faces, and it reminded me of why I was fighting so hard for our family. Meanwhile, Lauren seemed to genuinely be working on herself. She sought therapy, began to take accountability for her actions, and even reached out to me with small gestures, a note on the counter thanking me for being a good dad, little things that showed she was trying to change. I still didn't know if I could fully trust her again, but I could see she was making an effort. Eventually, I decided to give couples therapy a shot. I wasn't ready to commit to reconciliation, but I figured it could help us both sort through our feelings. During our sessions, Lauren opened up about her insecurities and why she sought validation outside our marriage. It wasn't an excuse for her behavior, but it gave me a glimpse into her mind, something I had missed in all the chaos. Through the process, I realized that I wasn't just mourning the loss of trust, I was also mourning the future I thought we'd have together. As painful as it was, I learned that it was okay to prioritize my feelings and my mental health. At the end of it all, I chose to take things one day at a time. I didn't make any rash decisions about our future, but I also wasn't willing to ignore my own needs anymore. The experience taught me that sometimes love isn't enough, trust is essential, and if it's broken, rebuilding takes time, effort, and most importantly, honesty. So, to anyone reading this who finds themselves in a similar situation, remember this: trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Communicate openly, and don't be afraid to seek help. Above all, know that your feelings matter. Healing takes time, but you don't have to go through it alone. Thanks for reading, everyone. Here's hoping for better days ahead.